Celeste's first date after divorce takes a shocking twist when her ex-husband Evan, who once let her walk away, turns out to be her date's brother. Fate has brought them face to face again, but will it bring them back together? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The evening sky glowed purple and orange over Chicago's magnificent skyline. Celeste Harmon checked her appearance one last time in her compact mirror before entering the elevator. At 29, she was stunning in her simple black dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Her short, newly styled hair framed her face, making her look different from the woman she was 2 years ago. That had been the point of the change, to become someone new. 15th floor, please, she told the attendant, trying to calm the flutter in her stomach. Celeste hadn't been on a date in over a year, not since her divorce from Evan Maddox had been finalized. The pain of their separation still lingered like a dull ache she couldn't shake. Get it together, she whispered to herself. It's just dinner. But it wasn't just dinner. It was her first attempt at moving on. Her sister Amara had practically forced her to download the dating app. You can't spend the rest of your life teaching Pilates and crying over old wedding photos, Amara had told her bluntly last week. It's time to meet someone new. The elevator doors opened to reveal the rooftop restaurant. Soft jazz played while waiters in crisp uniforms moved between tables. The city lights twinkled through floor-to-ceiling windows. It was exactly the kind of place Evan would have chosen. Elegant, but not showy. Celeste took a deep breath and gave her name to the hostess. Your party is already seated, the young woman said with a smile. Right this way. Celeste followed, scanning the restaurant for her date. Grayson was his name. The profile had said he was an architect, successful, intelligent, recently single. She'd liked his honest smile in his photos and the way he talked about his family. The hostess led her to a table by the window. A man sat with his back to her, a bouquet of white roses on the table beside him. Celeste smiled. How thoughtful. Your guest has arrived, sir, the hostess announced. The man stood up and turned around. Celeste felt her heart stop. The smile died on her lips. Evan? She whispered, blood draining from her face. Evan Maddox stood frozen, his tall frame rigid with shock. His dark eyes widened as they took her in. Celeste? He said, his voice hoarse. What are you doing here? The hostess looked between them, sensing the tension. Is everything all right? No, Celeste said, finding her voice. No, it's not. There's been a mistake. You're my brother's date? Evan asked, disbelief written across his handsome face. Celeste's mind raced. Brother? Then it hit her. Grayson Maddox, Evan's younger brother. She hadn't made the connection because she'd only known him as Gray during her marriage. This isn't happening, she said, shaking her head. I'm leaving. She turned to go, but Evan caught her wrist. His touch sent an unwelcome shock through her body. Wait, he said. Please, let go of me, Evan. He released her immediately. I'm sorry, but please don't run off. Let me explain. Explain what? That your brother set us up as some kind of sick joke? No, of course not. He doesn't know. I was screening his dates for him. I picked your profile without realizing it was you. You changed your hair, your last name. Celeste touched her short bob self-consciously. I went back to my maiden name after the divorce. You remember? The divorce you didn't fight? Evan flinched as if she'd slapped him. Celeste, please. Just sit down. Have a drink. Then if you want to leave, I won't stop you. She should have walked away. Every instinct told her to run, but something in his eyes, a vulnerability she'd rarely seen during their marriage, made her stay. One drink, she agreed coldly. Then I'm gone. They sat in awkward silence until the waiter appeared. Evan ordered scotch. Celeste asked for white wine. You look good, Evan said finally, his eyes taking in her appearance. The hair suits you. Don't, she warned. Don't act like we're friends catching up. What should I act like, Celeste? This isn't exactly a situation I prepared for. How about like the man who let his wife walk away without a fight? That should be easy. You've had practice. The drinks arrived, saving Evan from responding immediately. He took a long sip of his scotch, his knuckles white around the glass. I never wanted you to leave, he said quietly. Celeste laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. That's funny, because I remember begging you to talk to me, to tell me what was wrong. I remember crying myself to sleep while you worked late. I remember asking you to fight for us, and you just stood there, silent, watching me pack my bags. I thought I was doing what was best for you. Best for me. Her voice rose slightly, causing nearby diners to glance over. She leaned forward, lowering her tone. How was breaking my heart best for me? Evan's shoulders slumped. For the first time, Celeste noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the new lines on his face. "My mother was getting worse," he said. "The Alzheimer's. I was drowning, Celeste. Between work and taking care of her and watching her forget who I was day by day, I couldn't burden you with that." "I was your wife," she hissed. "That's what marriage means. In sickness and in health, remember? Those vows we took." "I remember every word," he said, his voice thick. "I just couldn't watch another woman I love suffer." The word love hung between them, present tense, a live wire neither dared to touch. At another table across the restaurant, a young man with a familiar face entered, looking around. Grayson Maddox had arrived, his expression changing from eager anticipation to confusion as he spotted his brother sitting with a beautiful woman. "Evan!" he called, approaching their table. "What's going on?" Evan turned, tension visible in his jaw. "Gray, this isn't what it looks like." Grayson looked at Celeste, then did a double take, recognition dawning on his face. "Celeste, is that you?" "Hello, Gray," she said, attempting a smile. "It's been a while." "I don't understand," Grayson said, looking between them. "Evan, why are you here with my date? And Celeste, you're my date." "Your brother was screening your dates," Celeste explained, her voice dripping with irony. "Apparently, he picked me without realizing who I was." "Funny how life works, isn't it?" Grayson's eyes widened. "This is beyond awkward. I'm so sorry, Celeste. I had no idea." "It's not your fault," she assured him, standing up. "But I should go." "No, please," Grayson said. "I'll go. You two obviously have things to discuss." "There's nothing to discuss," Celeste insisted, grabbing her purse. "That's not true, and you know it," Evan said, standing as well. "There's 2 years of things we never said." Grayson looked at his brother, a new understanding in his eyes. "You never told me what really happened between you two, did you? You just shut down, like you always do." "Stay out of this, Gray," Evan warned. "No, I won't," Grayson shot back, "because I watched you fall apart after she left, and now fate gives you a second chance and you're going to what? Let her walk away again?" The brothers stared at each other, years of unspoken tension rising to the surface. "I need some air," Celeste said, heading for the elevator. "Celeste, wait!" both brothers called after her. She ignored them, hurrying through the restaurant. The elevator doors were closing when a hand shot between them. Evan pushed his way in, breathing hard. "Get out," she said, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "No," he replied firmly. "Not this time." The doors closed, trapping them together. Celeste pressed herself against the far wall, arms crossed protectively over her chest. "What do you want from me, Evan?" "I want to explain. Really explain. Not here. Not with an audience. Come back to the table, please." The elevator stopped at a lower floor and a couple got on, chatting happily. Celeste and Evan fell silent, the tension between them palpable. When they reached the lobby, Celeste stepped out. Evan followed. "I can't do this," she said, her voice breaking. "Seeing you, it hurts too much." "I know," he said softly, "but maybe that's because we never really ended things properly. We just stopped." She looked up at him, at the face she'd once known better than her own, the face she'd loved waking up to every morning. "1 hour," she said finally. "We can talk for 1 hour, then I never want to see you again." Relief washed over his features. "Thank you." They found a quiet corner in the hotel bar, away from the crowds. Evan ordered more drinks, while Celeste texted her sister to let her know she was okay. "How is Amara?" Evan asked when she put her phone away. "Protective. She'd kill you if she knew I was sitting here with you." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She always was your fierce defender." "Someone had to be," Celeste said pointedly. Evan nodded, accepting the jab. "I deserve that. You deserve a lot worse." He met her gaze steadily. "I know." Celeste sighed, suddenly tired. "Just tell me why, Evan, the real reason. Not the noble I was protecting you story, the truth." Evan stared into his drink for a long moment before speaking. "My mother started forgetting things, small things at first, where she put her keys, what day it was. Then bigger things. She forgot she had invited people for dinner. She got lost driving to the grocery store she'd been going to for 20 years. Celeste softened slightly. She had loved Evan's mother, had spent countless weekends at her house cooking together and sharing stories. "I remember," she said, "but you never let me help." "Because I was terrified," Evan admitted, his voice raw. "My father left when her symptoms first appeared. He couldn't handle it. I was 14, Gray was 11, he just walked out, and I swore I'd never do that to someone I loved. So instead, you pushed me away?" I saw what caring for her was doing to me. The stress, the heartbreak of watching her disappear piece by piece. I didn't want to drag you down with me. That wasn't your choice to make, Celeste said. I was your wife. I know that now, he said, rubbing his face with his hands. But back then, all I could think was that I was turning into my father. Distant, angry, overwhelmed. I thought if I pulled away, if I handled it alone, I could protect you from that version of me. You didn't trust me to be strong enough. No, he corrected her. I didn't trust myself to be strong enough for both of us. They sat in silence, the weight of his confession hanging between them. How is she now? Celeste asked finally. Pain flashed across Evan's face. Worse. She has good days and bad days. On the bad days, she doesn't recognize me at all. I'm sorry, Celeste said, and meant it. That must be awful for you. The hardest part is going through it alone, he admitted. Gray helps when he can, but he has his own life, and without you— He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I've missed you, he said instead, looking directly into her eyes. Every day for 2 years I've missed you. Celeste's heart hammered in her chest. Don't say that. Why not? It's the truth. Because it's not fair, she said, her voice trembling. You don't get to miss me after you let me go. I know I have no right to ask, but would you come see her? My mother. She always loved you. Even now, sometimes she asks about you. Celeste hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, he said. Not for me, for her. She looked at him, at the pain and hope mingled in his eyes, and found herself nodding. Okay, but just to see her, he agreed. As they finished their drinks, Grayson appeared at their table. I paid the bill upstairs, he said. Least I could do for the world's most awkward setup. He turned to Celeste. I am really sorry about this. It's okay, she said. It wasn't your fault. Still, I feel terrible, but— He glanced between them with a hint of mischief. Maybe it was meant to be. Gray, Evan warned. What? I'm just saying, of all the profiles my brother could have picked, he chose his ex-wife's. That's some serious universe intervention, or just really bad luck, Celeste retorted, but there was less bite in her words now. I should get going, she said, gathering her things. It's getting late. I'll drive you home, Evan offered. No need, I can get a cab. Please, Celeste, it's the least I can do. She wanted to refuse, to maintain the distance between them, but the thought of sitting alone in a cab with her emotions in turmoil was worse than sharing a car with him. Fine, she conceded. They said goodnight to Grayson, who hugged Celeste and whispered, He's never stopped loving you, you know. She pulled away without responding, not trusting her voice. Outside, the valet brought Evan's car, the same sleek black Mercedes he'd had during their marriage. Some things hadn't changed. They drove in silence for several blocks, the familiar streets of Chicago sliding past the windows. Celeste gave brief directions to her new apartment, a place Evan had never seen. You moved to Lincoln Park, he commented. After the studio took off, I have 5 instructors working for me now. That's amazing, he said, genuine pride in his voice. You always wanted your own place. I did a lot of things after you, things I always wanted to do. The implication hung in the air, that she'd flourished without him, that perhaps the divorce had freed her. I'm glad, he said softly. You deserve every success. When they reached her building, Evan pulled to the curb but didn't turn off the engine. He knew better than to assume he was invited up. Thank you for the ride, Celeste said formally, and for explaining. Thank you for listening, he replied, and for agreeing to visit my mother. I'll call you to arrange it, she said, reaching for the door handle. Celeste, he said, stopping her. I know I have no right to ask, but is there any chance— Could we try to be friends? She looked at him, the man she'd once built her life around, the man who had broken her heart with his silence. I don't know, Evan. I honestly don't know. He nodded, accepting her answer. I understand, but I want you to know something. If I could go back, I'd fight for you. I'd fight with everything I have. Celeste felt tears threatening again. Good night, Evan. She got out of the car quickly, not looking back as she entered her building. Only when she was safely inside her apartment did she allow the tears to fall. Tears of anger, confusion, and something else she wasn't ready to name. Across town, Evan sat in his parked car, outside his mother's care facility, his forehead resting on the steering wheel. I found her, Mum, he whispered to the empty car. And this time I'm not letting her go without a fight. Inside the facility, Eleanor Maddox sat in her room, looking at an old photograph of a beautiful young couple on their wedding day, her son and the daughter-in-law, whose name she sometimes forgot, but whose smile she always remembered. "They'll find their way back," she murmured, touching the picture with trembling fingers. "Love always finds its way back." Celeste woke up the next morning with a headache and a heart full of confusion. She reached for her phone and saw 3 missed calls from her sister, Amara. Before she could call back, her phone rang again. "Finally!" Amara's voice was loud and impatient. "I've been calling all morning. How was the date? Was this Grayson guy worth getting all dressed up for?" Celeste sat up in bed, rubbing her temple. "It wasn't Grayson." "What do you mean it wasn't Grayson? Did he stand you up?" "No, It's complicated, Amara." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Celeste Harper Harmon, what aren't you telling me?" Celeste took a deep breath. "It was Evan." "Evan?" Amara practically shouted. "As in your ex-husband Evan, the man who broke your heart and didn't even have the decency to fight for your marriage? That Evan?" "Yes, that Evan." Celeste got out of bed and walked to her kitchen to make coffee. "It was a mix-up. Grayson asked Evan to screen his dating profiles, and Evan picked me without realizing it was me." "This sounds like the plot of a bad movie," Amara said. "Please tell me you walked out the second you saw him." Celeste hesitated. "Not exactly." "Oh, Celeste, what did you do?" "We talked. He explained some things about what happened during our marriage, things he never told me before." "And you believed him? After 2 years of silence, he suddenly has explanations?" "His mother has Alzheimer's, Amara. It was getting worse when we were together, and he didn't know how to handle it. He pushed me away because he thought he was protecting me." Amara scoffed. "That's the excuse he's going with, protecting you by breaking your heart? How noble of him. You don't understand." "No, you don't understand," Amara cut in. "I was there, remember? I was the one who picked up the pieces when he shut you out. I was the one who helped you move. I was the one who held you while you cried yourself to sleep night after night." Celeste closed her eyes, the memories washing over her. "I know. So what happens now? You forgive him and everything goes back to how it was?" "No, of course not. I agreed to visit his mother, that's all." "His mother?" Amara's voice rose again. "Celeste, why would you do that to yourself?" "Because she was like a mother to me too," Celeste said defensively. "She always treated me like a daughter, even when Evan and I were just dating. I can't just forget her, because my marriage ended." Amara sighed heavily. "I know you loved Eleanor, but seeing her means seeing him. Are you sure you're ready for that?" "I don't know," Celeste admitted, "but I'm going to find out." After hanging up with her sister, Celeste got ready for her day. She had 3 Pilates classes to teach, which would keep her mind occupied. But as she drove to her studio, her thoughts kept drifting back to Evan, to the pain in his eyes when he talked about his mother, to the way he'd said he missed her every day. The first class went by in a blur. The second was easier as she found her rhythm. By the third, she was almost feeling like herself again. Almost. As the last student left, Celeste began tidying the studio. The sound of the door opening made her look up. Her heart skipped a beat. Evan stood awkwardly in the doorway, dressed in workout clothes. "What are you doing here?" she asked, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. "I called earlier," he said. "Your receptionist said you had a 4 p.m. class open to new students. You want to take a Pilates class?" He shrugged, looking uncomfortable. "I thought it might help with my back. I've been having trouble sleeping lately." Celeste narrowed her eyes. "You hate exercise." "People change," he said simply. She didn't know what to say to that. Instead, she pointed to an empty mat. "Class starts in 10 minutes. You can set up there." Evan was the worst student she'd ever had. He couldn't hold a plank for more than 10 seconds. His balance was terrible. He groaned loudly with every movement. By the end of the hour, he was sweating profusely and looked like he might pass out. "That was intense," he gasped as the other students filed out. Celeste couldn't help but smile. "You're going to be sore tomorrow." "I'm sore now," he admitted. "But it was worth it." "Why? To prove you could survive my class?" "To see you in your element," he said. "You're amazing at this, Celeste. The way you talked those people through each movement, how you corrected their form with just a touch. Oh, you were born to do this." She felt herself blushing under his gaze. "Thank you. I mean it. I'm proud of you." The words hit her unexpectedly, bringing a lump to her throat. During their marriage, Evan had been supportive but distant. His compliments had been automatic, never this specific, this genuine. "When do you want to visit my mother?" he asked, changing the subject. "I can go tomorrow," Celeste said. "I have the afternoon free. I'll pick you up at 2?" She nodded, already wondering if this was a mistake. The next day, Evan arrived precisely at 2 o'clock. Celeste was waiting outside her building, wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a small gift bag. "What's that?" Evan asked as she got into the car. Lavender hand cream, she said. Your mother always loved the smell of lavender. Evan smiled softly. You remembered. Of course I did. The drive to the care facility was quiet. Celeste stared out the window, thinking about the last time she'd seen Eleanor Maddox. It had been right before she left Evan, when she'd made one last desperate attempt to understand what was happening to her marriage. She'd gone to Eleanor's house, hoping her mother-in-law might have some insight into her son's withdrawal, but Eleanor had been having a bad day. She'd looked at Celeste with blank eyes and asked who she was. Evan had appeared from the kitchen, his face tight with stress. You shouldn't have come, he'd said coldly. She's not having a good day. I needed to see you, Celeste had pleaded. You won't talk to me at home. You barely look at me. This isn't the time, he'd replied, turning his attention back to his mother. It had been the final straw. The next day, Celeste had packed her bags. Now, as they pulled into the parking lot of Sunset Pines Care Center, Celeste felt her anxiety rising. What if Eleanor didn't remember her at all? She has good days and bad days, Evan said as if reading her thoughts. Today has been good so far, according to the nurses. They walked through the entrance together. The facility was nicer than Celeste had expected, bright and clean, with comfortable furniture and large windows. It didn't have the clinical feel she'd feared. Evan led her to a sunny common room where several residents were gathered. Eleanor sat near a window, a book open in her lap. At 63, she was still beautiful, with the same dark eyes as her son and silver-streaked hair styled elegantly around her face. Mom, Evan called softly. I brought someone to see you. Eleanor looked up, her eyes focusing slowly. Then her face transformed with a smile of pure joy. Celeste, she exclaimed, holding out her arms. My darling girl. Celeste felt tears spring to her eyes as she moved forward to embrace the older woman. Hello, Eleanor, it's so good to see you. It's been too long, Eleanor said, holding Celeste's hands and studying her face. You cut your hair. It's lovely. So modern. Thank you, Celeste said, touched that Eleanor had noticed. Sit with me. Eleanor patted the space beside her on the small sofa. Tell me everything. How are your classes going? Do you still have that little studio downtown? Celeste glanced at Evan in surprise. Eleanor remembered her job. Actually, I opened my own studio now, Celeste said, sitting down. In Lincoln Park. I knew you would, Eleanor said proudly. Didn't I tell you, Evan? I always said she was going to do great things. Evan nodded, his expression soft. You did, Mum. And you too. How's married life treating you? The question hung in the air like a thundercloud. Celeste froze, not knowing how to respond. Evan stepped forward. Mum, remember, Celeste and I aren't together anymore. Eleanor's face fell. What? No, that can't be right. She looked between them, confusion clouding her eyes. But you're perfect together. You've always been perfect together. We got divorced, Mom, Evan said gently. 2 years ago. Divorced? Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. But why? What happened? Celeste reached for her hand. It's complicated, Eleanor, but we're still friends. She ignored Evan's surprised look at this declaration. I wanted to come see you. I've missed you. Eleanor squeezed her hand. I've missed you too, sweetheart, more than you know. She looked at her son with sudden clarity. You let her go, didn't you? Just like your father let me go. Evan paled. Mom, don't mom me, Eleanor said sharply. I may be losing my mind, but I still know my son. You pushed her away because you were scared. Celeste had never heard Eleanor speak to Evan this way. The older woman had always been gentle, understanding. It's okay, Celeste said, trying to smooth over the tension. That's in the past now. Is it? Eleanor asked, looking between them with surprisingly keen eyes. Because I see the way you two look at each other. That's not past. That's very much present. Evan cleared his throat. I'm going to get some coffee. Would either of you like anything? No, thank you, Celeste said, grateful for the moment alone with Eleanor. When Evan had gone, Eleanor turned to Celeste. He's suffering, you know. We both suffered, Celeste said quietly. Yes, but he brought it on himself, Eleanor replied. He watched his father walk away from me when I got sick. He swore he'd never do that to someone he loved. Instead, he found a different way to leave. By pushing me away, Celeste nodded. He thought he was protecting you, Eleanor sighed. Men can be so stupid sometimes. They think they're being noble when really they're just being cowards. Despite everything, Celeste found herself defending him. He was trying to handle everything himself. Your care, his work, our marriage, it was too much. And did he ever ask for help? No, Celeste admitted. I begged him to let me in, to let me help. But he just shut down more and more. Eleanor nodded sadly. You were the one he needed, you know. He just never learned how to need softly. What do you mean? Some people, they think needing someone means burdening them. They don't understand that sometimes letting someone help you is a gift to them too. She patted Celeste's hand. You were good for him. The best thing that ever happened to him. Celeste felt tears threatening again. I loved him so much, Eleanor. And now? The directness of the question caught her off guard. I don't know, she said honestly. Seeing him again, it stirred up a lot of feelings. But I can't go back to how things were. Of course not, Eleanor agreed. Going back is never the answer. The question is whether you can go forward, together. Before Celeste could respond, Evan returned with his coffee. What are you two talking about? He asked. Just catching up, Eleanor said innocently. Celeste was telling me about her studio. They spent the next hour talking comfortably. Eleanor had moments of confusion. She occasionally repeated a question or lost track of the conversation, but overall, she was lucid and engaged. She laughed at Celeste's story about Evan attempting Pilates. You never were very coordinated, she teased her son. Thanks for the support, Mom, he replied dryly. Are you going back for another class? Eleanor asked him. Evan glanced at Celeste. I was thinking about it, if the instructor will have me. The instructor has standards, Celeste replied with a small smile. But I suppose I could make an exception. The easy banter felt so familiar, so much like the old days, that for a moment Celeste could almost forget the pain between them. Almost. As visiting hours came to an end, they prepared to leave. Eleanor held Celeste's hands tightly. Don't be a stranger, she said. Promise you'll come back. I promise, Celeste said, meaning it. Whatever happened with Evan, she wouldn't abandon Eleanor again. And you, Eleanor turned to her son, don't mess this up a second time. Mom, Evan protested, his cheeks flushing. I'm just saying, Eleanor shrugged. You've been given a second chance. Those don't come around often. On the drive back to Celeste's apartment, neither of them mentioned Eleanor's comments. Instead, they talked about the facility, about how well she seemed to be doing there. The staff is amazing, Evan said. They treat her with such dignity, even on her worst days. It must be expensive, Celeste observed. Evan nodded. It is, but it's worth every penny. Gray and I split the cost. That's good that he helps. He stepped up a lot in the past year, Evan admitted. He trailed off. After our divorce? Celeste finished for him. Yeah, he saw how badly I was handling everything and basically told me to get my act together. Sounds like Grayson, Celeste said with a small smile. She had always liked Evan's younger brother. When they reached her apartment building, Evan turned off the engine. This time the silence between them felt less awkward, more contemplative. Thank you for today, Evan said finally. You have no idea how much it meant to her, to see you. It meant a lot to me too, Celeste said. She's still the same Eleanor, isn't she? Even with the Alzheimer's. She has her moments, Evan agreed. The doctors say the emotional memory is often the last to go. She may forget names and dates, but she remembers how people make her feel. And how was it for you? Celeste asked cautiously. Having me there. Evan met her gaze. It felt right, he said simply. Like things were the way they should be. The intensity in his eyes made her look away. Evan, I know, he said quickly. I'm not asking for anything. I want you to know how much it means to me that you came. After everything. I did it for her, Celeste reminded him. I know that too, he said. But thank you anyway. She nodded, reaching for the door handle. Good night, Evan. Celeste, he called as she was about to close the car door. Would Tuesday work for the Pilates class? Despite herself, she smiled. Tuesday at 4. Don't be late. I wouldn't dream of it. As she watched him drive away, Celeste felt a familiar warmth spreading through her chest, a warmth she'd thought was gone forever. It scared her how easily those feelings could return, how vulnerable she still was to him. Inside her apartment, she found Amara waiting, a bottle of wine open on the coffee table. Your doorman let me in, her sister explained. I thought you might need this after seeing Eleanor. And him. Celeste sank onto the sofa beside her. You have no idea. That bad? Amara asked, pouring a generous glass of red wine and handing it to her. No, Celeste said, taking a sip. That's the problem. It wasn't bad at all. Eleanor remembered me. She was happy to see me. And Evan. She trailed off, not knowing how to describe the complex emotions swirling inside her. Evan what? Amara pressed. He's different, Celeste said finally. More open. He talked about his feelings. He showed up at my studio yesterday and took a class. Amara's eyebrows shot up. Evan Maddox did Pilates. Mr. I don't exercise because I have good genes. He was terrible, Celeste laughed, but he tried, and he's coming back on Tuesday. Oh, Celeste. Amara's face grew serious. So you're falling for him again, aren't you? No, Celeste said quickly, too quickly. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I do, Amara said firmly. You're setting yourself up for more heartbreak. He hurt you once. What makes you think he won't do it again? People change, Celeste echoed Evan's words from the studio. Not that much, Amara countered. Leopards don't change their spots. They just hide them better. That's not fair. You don't know what he was going through. And whose fault is that? He could have told you, he could have let you help. Instead, he shut you out until you had no choice but to leave. Celeste couldn't argue with that. It was exactly what had happened. Just be careful, Amara said, softening her tone. Take things slow. Make sure this new Evan is really different before you let him back into your heart. Who said anything about letting him back in? Celeste protested. Amara gave her a knowing look. Your face did just now when you were talking about him. I've seen that look before. It's the same one you had when you first fell in love with him. Celeste sighed, leaning back against the sofa. I'm not falling in love with him again. I'm just discovering who he is now. Amara hummed skeptically. Just remember what I said. Loving someone who can't show up for you ain't love. That's just self-destruction with a pretty face. The words stung because there was truth in them. Celeste had given everything to her marriage, only to watch it crumble when Evan refused to share his burdens with her. I'll be careful, she promised. I'm not jumping into anything. But that night, as she lay in bed trying to sleep, Celeste couldn't stop thinking about the way Evan had looked at her in the car, like she was his anchor in a storm. The way his hand had brushed against hers as they walked through the care facility, the genuine pride in his voice when he talked about her studio. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was Evan. Thank you again for today. Mom hasn't stopped talking about you. The nurses said she was happier than they've seen her in months. Celeste hesitated, then typed back, I'm glad. It was good to see her. 3 dots appeared, indicating he was typing. Then, I meant what I said. It felt right having you there. Like a missing piece had fallen back into place. Her heart raced as she read the words. She started several responses, deleting each one. Finally, she wrote, Good night, Evan. His reply came instantly. Good night, Celeste. Sleep well. She put her phone down, staring at the ceiling. This was dangerous territory. She was beginning to hope, and hope was the most treacherous emotion of all. Hope had kept her in her marriage long after it was clear that Evan was slipping away. Hope had made her believe he would fight for her when she threatened to leave. Hope had broken her heart. Across town, Evan sat in his home office staring at his phone. He hadn't expected Celeste to pour her heart out in response to his text, but he had hoped for something, some indication that she felt even a fraction of what he was feeling. Seeing her with his mother today had stirred emotions he'd been trying to suppress for 2 years. The easy way they connected, the genuine affection between them. It had reminded him of everything he'd lost when he pushed her away. He opened his laptop and found himself looking at therapists in the Chicago area. He'd never considered therapy before. In his family, emotional struggles were private matters, handled alone. His father had drilled that into him from an early age. Maddox men don't air their dirty laundry, he'd say whenever Evan or Gray showed too much emotion in public. But look where that philosophy had gotten him. Divorced, alone, missing the one person who had truly understood him. Before he could change his mind, Evan selected a therapist with good reviews and requested an appointment. Then he texted his brother, You free for a drink tomorrow? Gray's response came quickly. Sure. Murphy's at 8. See you there, Evan replied. He needed advice, and despite their differences, there was no one he trusted more than his younger brother. Gray had always been better at emotions, at relationships. He hadn't inherited their father's stoicism or their mother's fragility. Instead, he'd found a balance that Evan envied. Maybe it wasn't too late to learn. Maybe with help he could become the man Celeste deserved, the man who could fight for her instead of pushing her away. It was a long shot, he knew that, but for the first time in 2 years, Evan Maddox felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. The next evening, Grayson was already at the bar when Evan arrived. He had a beer waiting for his brother. How you look like you need this, Gray said, sliding it across the table. Evan took a long drink. Thanks. So, Gray leaned forward. Are we going to talk about the elephant in the room? What elephant? The Celeste-sized elephant, Gray said. The fact that you picked your ex-wife's dating profile and then had dinner with her. Evan sighed. It was an accident. I didn't know it was her. But you had dinner with her anyway, Gray pointed out. And from what I saw, it wasn't just polite conversation. We had things to discuss. Like what? The divorce you never explained to anyone? The reasons you shut down and let the best thing that ever happened to you walk away? Evan glared at his brother. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Gray challenged. I watched you spiral after she left. I watched you bury yourself in work and pretend you were fine. But you weren't fine, Evan. You're still not fine. Is this why you agreed to meet? To criticize my life choices? No, Gray softened his tone. I agreed to meet because you're my brother, and I love you, and because I think fate just handed you a second chance that most people never get. Evan stared into his beer. I took her to see Mom yesterday. Gray's eyebrows shot up. How did that go? It was... Evan searched for the right word. Illuminating. Mom remembered her. Completely. She talked about Celeste's studio, asked about her classes. She even remembered that Celeste cut her hair. That's amazing, Gray said. Mom's memory has been so spotty lately. But that's not the most surprising part, Evan continued. She called me out, told Celeste I pushed her away because I was scared, said I was like Dad. Gray winced. Ouch. The worst part is she's right, Evan admitted. I did exactly what I swore I'd never do. I left Celeste when things got hard. Not physically, like Dad left Mom, but emotionally. I checked out. That's the most self-aware thing I've ever heard you say, Gray said, clearly surprised. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Evan said, about what happened, about why I couldn't lean on Celeste when I needed her most. And I think I was terrified of being vulnerable, of showing weakness. Dad always said, Dad was an emotional cripple, Gray interrupted. His advice on relationships is about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Despite himself, Evan laughed. You're not wrong. So what are you going to do about it? Gray asked. About Celeste? I don't know, Evan admitted. I still love her. I never stopped. But I hurt her badly. She may never trust me again. Then you have to earn that trust back, Gray said simply. Not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, with consistency, with honesty, with vulnerability. I made an appointment with a therapist, Evan said quietly. Gray nearly choked on his beer. You? Mister, I can handle everything myself? It's time I learned a different way, Evan said, before it's too late. It might already be too late, Gray warned. Celeste might not be willing to give you another chance. I know, Evan said, but I have to try. Even if all we ever are is friends, even if she never forgives me completely. I need to be better. For her, for Mum, for myself. Gray raised his glass. To becoming better men than our father. Evan clinked his glass against his brother's. To second chances. As they drank, Evan felt a strange lightness in his chest. For the first time since his mother's diagnosis, since the collapse of his marriage, he felt something like peace. Whatever happened with Celeste, he was finally facing his demons instead of running from them. It was a start. So, Mr. Maddox, what brings you here today? Dr. Sarah Chen sat across from Evan, her expression professional but kind. Her office was comfortable, soft lighting, plants in the corners, and no desk between them, just two chairs facing each other. Evan shifted uncomfortably. He'd spent the whole drive here rehearsing what he would say, but now that he was actually sitting in a therapist's office, words failed him. I'm not really sure where to start, he admitted. The beginning is usually a good place, Dr. Chen suggested with a gentle smile, or whatever feels most pressing to you right now. Evan took a deep breath. I guess it started when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, or maybe before that with my father leaving us, or... He paused. Maybe it really started when I let my wife walk away 2 years ago because I was too afraid to be vulnerable with her. Dr. Chen nodded encouragingly. Tell me about that, about your wife. Ex-wife, Evan corrected automatically, then frowned. Her name is Celeste. We were married for 4 years. She's incredible, strong, compassionate, beautiful inside and out. And what happened between you? Evan stared at his hands. I shut down. My mother's condition was getting worse. I was trying to handle everything, her care, my career, our marriage, and instead of letting Celeste help me, I pushed her away. Why do you think you did that? Because I was scared, Evan said, the admission feeling like a weight lifting from his chest. Scared of being weak, scared of being a burden, scared she would leave if she saw how much I was struggling, so I made her leave by shutting her out. That's a very insightful observation, Dr. Chen noted. What made you decide to seek therapy now, after 2 years? Evan smiled slightly. Fate, maybe? Celeste and I ran into each other recently. by complete accident. And now I'm wondering if there's a chance to make things right. Not just with her, but with myself. As Evan continued talking, the words came more easily. He told Dr. Chen about his father's emotional distance, about growing up believing that real men handled their problems alone. He talked about the pressure he'd always felt to be strong, to be the rock for everyone else. "It sounds like you've been carrying a very heavy burden," Dr. Chen said when he finally fell silent, "and doing it all alone." "That's what Maddox men do," Evan said bitterly, quoting his father. "How has that worked out for you so far?" The question hit him like a bucket of cold water. "Not well," he admitted. "I lost the woman I love. I'm barely connecting with my mother while I still can. My brother and I are close, but there's always been a wall there too." "What would it look like to do things differently?" Dr. Chen asked. "To not be a Maddox man the way your father defined it?" Evan had never considered that question before. What would it look like to break the pattern? To be vulnerable? To ask for help when he needed it? "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I want to find out." Tuesday afternoon came quickly. Celeste was setting up for her 4 p.m. class when she saw Evan walk in. He was dressed in proper workout clothes this time, not the mismatched outfit he'd worn last week. "You came back," she said, unable to hide her surprise. "I said I would," he replied. "I keep my promises now." The subtle acknowledgement of his past failures wasn't lost on her. She nodded, pointing to an open mat in the back row. "We're working on core strength today," she warned. "It's going to make the last class seem easy." Evan groaned dramatically. "I'm still sore from Thursday." "Good," she said with a smirk. "That means it's working." As the class filled up, Celeste noticed Evan chatting easily with some of the regular students. His natural charm had always drawn people to him. It was one of the things that had attracted her when they first met, his ability to make everyone feel special, included. During class, she caught herself watching him more than she should. He was still terrible at Pilates, but he was trying hard, following her instructions with determined concentration. When their eyes met, he gave her a small smile that made her heart skip. After class, as the other students filed out, Evan approached her, toweling sweat from his face. "That was even worse than last time," he complained good-naturedly. "You did better, though," she said, surprised to realize it was true. "Your form has improved." "I've been practicing at home," he admitted. "YouTube has some beginner tutorials." The image of Evan Maddox, successful architect and notorious exercise avoider, doing Pilates in his living room made her laugh. "What's so funny?" he asked. "Just trying to picture you following along to Pilates for beginners videos." "It wasn't pretty," he assured her. "My housekeeper walked in on me trying to do a roll-up. She thought I'd thrown my back out." They both laughed, and for a moment, it felt like old times. The easy banter, the shared humor. "I was wondering," Evan said, his tone turning serious, "if you'd like to have dinner sometime? A real dinner, not an accidental blind date." Celeste hesitated. "Evan, just dinner," he said quickly. "As friends. I'm not asking for anything more than that. I've missed talking to you." She should say no. That's what Amara would tell her to do. That's what her own self-preservation instincts were screaming. But looking at him, really looking at him, she could see something different in his eyes, a vulnerability that hadn't been there before. "Okay," she said finally. "Dinner. As friends." His face lit up. "Great. When works for you? Friday? Around 7? "Friday's perfect," he agreed. "I know a quiet Italian place in the West Loop. Nothing fancy, just good food." "That sounds nice," she said, surprised by the flutter of anticipation in her stomach. As he was leaving, Evan turned back. "I'm seeing a therapist," he said abruptly. "I had my first session yesterday." Celeste stared at him, speechless. In all the years she'd known him, Evan had never been willing to consider therapy. She'd suggested it multiple times during their marriage, especially when things started falling apart. That's great," she managed. "I should have done it years ago," he said. "Maybe things would have been different if I had." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving her with a whirlwind of confused emotions. That evening, Celeste called Amara to tell her about the dinner invitation. "Please tell me you said no," her sister said immediately. "I said yes," Celeste admitted, "but just as friends." "Uh-huh. And how many just friends dinners led to your first marriage?" "This is different," Celeste insisted. "We're different. He told me he's seeing a therapist." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Evan Maddox? In therapy? The same man who said therapy was paying strangers to listen to your problems?" "That's what he told me." "Well," Amara sounded genuinely surprised, "that is different. I think he's really trying, Amara. To change, to be better. People don't change that much, Celeste. But what if he has? What if losing me, dealing with his mother's illness, what if it's made him realize what matters? Amara sighed. Just be careful. Guard your heart. If you're going to do this, go in with your eyes wide open. I will, Celeste promised. It's just dinner. But as she got ready for bed that night, Celeste knew it wasn't just dinner. It was a step toward something. Reconciliation, closure, or perhaps something entirely new. She wasn't sure which one scared her more. Friday arrived, and Evan found himself more nervous than he'd been for any business presentation or client meeting. He changed his tie 3 times before deciding to go without one. This wasn't a date, he reminded himself. Just dinner between friends. Old friends with a complicated history. He picked Celeste up at her apartment, arriving exactly on time. When she opened the door, he momentarily forgot how to breathe. She was wearing a simple red dress that brought out the warm undertones in her skin. Her short hair was styled in soft waves around her face. You look beautiful, he said sincerely. Thank you, she replied, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. You look nice too, no tie. I thought it might be too formal, he explained. This is just dinner between friends, right? Right, she agreed, though something in her eyes made his heart race. The restaurant was as he'd described, small, intimate, with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. The owner, Marco, greeted Evan by name and led them to a quiet table in the corner. You come here often? Celeste asked as they settled in. Once a week, usually, Evan admitted. It's close to my office and Marco doesn't mind if I spread out blueprints on the table when it's not busy. Some things never change, she said with a small smile. You always did turn every restaurant into your personal workspace. I'm trying to be better about that, he said. Work-life balance and all that. They ordered wine and appetizers, falling into easier conversation than either had expected. Evan told her about a community center he was designing, one that would include facilities for seniors with memory issues. It's inspired by Mom, he explained. I've been researching the best environments for people with Alzheimer's. Natural light, clear pathways, memory cues built into the architecture. That sounds amazing, Celeste said, genuinely impressed. You always wanted your work to have meaning beyond just aesthetics. I lost sight of that for a while, he admitted. After you left, I threw myself into commercial projects. Big money, high profile. I thought it would fill the void. Did it? Not even close. He met her eyes across the table. Nothing did. The honesty in his voice made her look away, uncomfortable with the intensity of the moment. Tell me about your studio, he said, changing the subject. How did that happen? Grateful for the shift, Celeste told him about the leap of faith she'd taken in opening her own place, how she'd used her divorce settlement to secure the space, how terrified she'd been that it would fail. But it didn't, she said, pride evident in her voice. We broke even after 6 months. Now we have a waiting list for most classes. That doesn't surprise me at all, Evan said. You've always been amazing at anything you set your mind to. As they continued talking through dinner, Celeste found herself relaxing more and more. This was a side of Evan she had glimpsed early in their relationship, but that had gradually disappeared as he retreated into himself. He was engaged, asking questions about her life, actually listening to her answers. How's therapy going? She asked as they shared a tiramisu for dessert. It's challenging, he said after a moment. Dr. Chen doesn't let me get away with my usual deflections. She calls me out when I'm avoiding something. Sounds like someone I used to know, Celeste said pointedly. You, he acknowledged with a rueful smile. You always could see right through me. I hated that. I know you did. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, setting down his fork, for shutting you out, for making you feel like you weren't important enough to fight for. You were. You are. I was just broken. Celeste felt tears threatening. Evan, we don't have to do this now. Yes, we do, he insisted gently, because I need you to know that it was never about you not being enough. It was about me being afraid to need you as much as I did, as much as I still do. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Celeste didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to reach across the table and take his hand. Another part wanted to run, to protect herself from the hope his words ignited. I think I need some time, she said finally. This is all happening so fast. Evan nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course, I didn't mean to overwhelm you. Take all the time you need. The rest of the evening passed more lightly. They talked about safer topics, mutual friends, favorite books, a movie they'd both seen recently. By the time Evan drove her home, Celeste felt both emotionally drained and strangely invigorated. Thank you for tonight, she said, as they stood outside her building. It was nice. It was, he agreed. Can we do it again sometime? She hesitated only briefly. Yes, I'd like that. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, joy, gratitude, all mixed together. Good night, Celeste. Good night, Evan. He waited until she was safely inside before driving away. As she rode the elevator up to her apartment, Celeste realized she was smiling. Despite all her fears, despite Amara's warnings, she had enjoyed herself tonight. More than that, she had seen glimpses of the man she had fallen in love with years ago, and perhaps glimpses of someone new, someone better. The next morning, Celeste received a text from Eleanor's care facility. It was from Nancy, one of the nurses she'd met during her visit. Eleanor asking for you. Having tough day. Visit possible. Concern immediately replaced the lingering warmth from last night's dinner. She texted back that she would come right away, then called Evan. I just got the same message, he said when he answered. I'm heading there now. I'll meet you there, Celeste told him. When she arrived at Sunset Pines, Evan was already in the parking lot, waiting for her. His face was drawn with worry. Nancy said she's been agitated all morning, he explained as they walked in together. Keeps asking for you. Did something trigger it? They're not sure. Sometimes it happens for no apparent reason. They found Eleanor in her room, pacing back and forth, her normally styled hair disheveled. When she saw them, she stopped, confusion clouding her eyes. Eleanor, Celeste said gently. It's me, Celeste. Recognition flickered across the older woman's face. Celeste, where have you been? I've been waiting for you to come home. We need to finish planning the wedding. Celeste glanced at Evan, uncertain how to respond. He shook his head slightly, indicating she should go along with it. I'm sorry I'm late, Celeste said, taking Eleanor's hands. Let's sit down and talk about those plans. They sat on the edge of Eleanor's bed while Evan pulled up a chair across from them. Eleanor clutched Celeste's hands tightly. The flowers came all wrong, she fretted. I ordered white roses, but they delivered lilies, and the caterer called. Something about the menu changes. Don't worry, Celeste soothed. We'll sort it all out. White roses are still my favorite. Eleanor smiled, momentarily calmed. You'll be such a beautiful bride. My son is a lucky man. Evan's eyes met Celeste's over his mother's head. There was pain there, but also something else, a quiet resolve. Yes, I am, he said softly. They spent the next hour with Eleanor, gently redirecting her when she became confused, assuring her that everything was taken care of. Gradually, she grew calmer. When lunch was served, she ate without protest, even laughing at a joke Evan made. After lunch, exhaustion overtook her. As she drifted off to sleep, she murmured, I'm so glad you two found each other again. In the hallway outside her room, Evan ran a hand through his hair. Thank you for coming, he said. I don't know what I would have done without you. She was confused, Celeste said. She thinks we're still getting married. I know. The doctors say it's common. Patients with Alzheimer's often revert to significant memories from the past. Our wedding was a happy day for her. For all of us, Celeste said softly. Evan nodded, his expression solemn. I know this is a lot to ask, but would you be willing to visit her more regularly? She responds to you in a way she doesn't with anyone else. Even me. Of course, Celeste said without hesitation. I care about her too, Evan. That never changed. I can pick you up, drive you here. Whatever works best for you. That might be easier. The facility is pretty far from public transportation. Thank you, he said again, the words filled with genuine gratitude. As they walked back to their cars, Evan's phone rang. He answered, his expression changing from concern to shock as he listened. What? When? He demanded. Is he okay? Yes, I'll be right there. He hung up, his face pale. What is it? Celeste asked, alarmed. It's Gray, Evan said, his voice tight. He's been in an accident, car crash. He's at Chicago Memorial. Is he hurt badly? They wouldn't tell me details over the phone, just that I should come right away. He looked at her, vulnerability plain on his face. Would you come with me? Without thinking, Celeste reached for his hand. Of course. Let's go. They drove to the hospital in tense silence, Evan's knuckles white on the steering wheel. Celeste wanted to offer reassurance, but she knew empty platitudes wouldn't help. Instead, she simply placed her hand over his when they stopped at red lights. At the hospital, they were directed to the emergency department. A doctor met them in the waiting room. Mr. Maddox, she asked, looking between them. That's me, Evan confirmed. How's my brother? He's stable, the doctor assured them. He has a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and a fractured wrist. But considering the severity of the crash, he's very lucky. Relief flooded Evan's face. Can I see him? Yes, but only for a few minutes. He's quite groggy from the pain medication. They followed the doctor to a curtained area where Grayson lay, his face bruised, his left arm in a cast. His eyes were closed, but he opened them when Evan spoke his name. "Hey, big brother," he said weakly. "Did you bring the hot nurse?" "That's the concussion talking," Evan said, his voice rough with emotion. "Celeste isn't a nurse." Gray's eyes focused on her. "Celeste, you're here too?" A slow smile spread across his face. "Are you two back together?" "We're friends," Celeste said quickly. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Gray replied. "Which is pretty accurate, actually. Guy ran a red light, didn't even slow down." Evan gripped the rail of the hospital bed. "You could have been killed, but I wasn't," Gray pointed out. "Just banged up a bit. They're keeping me overnight for observation, but I should be released tomorrow." "You're coming to stay with me," Evan said firmly. No arguments. Gray looked like he might protest, but then nodded. "Fine, but only because my place doesn't have an elevator, and there's no way I'm climbing 3 flights of stairs with broken ribs." The doctor returned, indicating it was time for them to leave. Evan squeezed his brother's good hand. "I'll be back first thing tomorrow to pick you up." "Bring coffee," Gray requested. "The good kind, not hospital sludge." In the parking lot, Evan suddenly pulled Celeste into a fierce hug, his body trembling slightly. "He could have died," he whispered against her hair. Celeste held him tightly, feeling his heart racing against her cheek. "But he didn't. He's going to be okay." Evan pulled back just enough to look at her, his eyes wet. "I don't know what I would have done if—" He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "You don't have to think about that," she assured him. "He's safe, that's what matters." They stood there, arms around each other, neither wanting to be the first to let go. The familiar comfort of Evan's embrace stirred feelings Celeste had tried hard to bury. She had forgotten how perfectly they fit together, how safe she felt in his arms. "I should get you home," Evan said finally, reluctantly releasing her. "Are you going to be okay?" she asked. "You've had quite a day. First your mother, now Gray." "I'll be fine," he said, though he looked exhausted. "I need to get the guest room ready for Gray, pick up some groceries." "Let me help," Celeste offered before she could stop herself. "We can stop by the store on the way to your place. I can help you set up the guest room." Evan looked surprised, then grateful. "You don't have to do that." "I want to," she said, and realized it was true. That's what friends do, right? Help each other when things get tough. "Right," he agreed, though something in his eyes suggested he was hoping for more than friendship. "Thank you." As they drove to the grocery store, Celeste texted Amara to let her know what had happened and that she would be late getting home. Amara's response was predictably concerned. "Be careful. Don't get swept up in his crisis. Remember your boundaries." Celeste stared at the message, feeling a twinge of irritation. Her sister meant well, but she didn't understand. This wasn't about getting swept up in Evan's problems. It was about being there for someone who needed support. The same support she had once begged him to accept from her. Maybe that was the difference now. Evan wasn't pushing her away. He was letting her in, accepting her help, showing his vulnerability. It wasn't weakness, as he had once believed. It was strength of a different kind. As they shopped for groceries, planned a simple dinner for the next day, and then drove to Evan's downtown condo, Celeste felt a strange sense of rightness, like pieces of a puzzle sliding back into place. Not the same puzzle as before, something new, something with a clearer picture. She just wasn't sure yet what that picture would be. The following weeks fell into a new rhythm. Grayson recovered at Evan's condo, complaining about his brother's hovering, but secretly appreciating the care. Celeste visited Eleanor 3 times a week, sometimes with Evan, sometimes alone, and every Tuesday afternoon, Evan showed up for Pilates class, gradually improving from terrible to merely bad. They didn't talk about what was happening between them, not directly, but something was definitely changing. In the lingering glances, the casual touches, the way they gravitated toward each other in any room. "So you two are exhausting to watch," Grayson commented one evening as the 3 of them ate dinner at Evan's place. "Just kiss already and put us all out of our misery." "Gray," Evan warned, his cheeks flushing. "What? I'm injured. I'm allowed to be blunt." He turned to Celeste, who was studying her pasta with sudden fascination. "Seriously, though, he's different now. You can see that, right?" "I should check on dessert," Celeste said, standing abruptly and escaping to the kitchen. Evan glared at his brother. "Was that necessary?" "Absolutely," Grayson replied, unapologetic. "You're both acting like teenagers with crushes, dancing around each other instead of talking about what's really going on." "It's complicated," Evan said quietly. There's a lot of history, a lot of hurt. So what? Life is complicated, life is full of hurt. That doesn't mean you give up on what matters. Grayson leaned forward, wincing slightly at the movement of his healing ribs. Look, almost dying puts things in perspective. Don't waste time being afraid. In the kitchen, Celeste leaned against the counter, trying to calm her racing heart. Grayson wasn't wrong. Things had changed between her and Evan. He was more open, more present, more willing to be vulnerable. And she was falling for him all over again, despite her best intentions, despite Amara's constant warnings. But was it enough? Could people really change that fundamentally? Or would Evan retreat back into emotional distance when things got hard again? Need help? Evan's voice startled her from her thoughts. Just getting the ice cream to soften, she said, gesturing to the container on the counter. He moved beside her close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn when they were married. The familiar scent triggered a flood of memories. I'm sorry about Gray, he said. He has no filter on a good day. With the concussion and pain meds, he shrugged apologetically. It's okay, she assured him. He's just saying what he thinks. And what do you think? Evan asked softly. About us? Celeste met his gaze. I think I'm scared, she admitted. Scared that no matter how much things seem different, they'll end up the same. I'm scared too, he confessed. Scared I'll mess up again. Scared I don't deserve a second chance. But I'm more scared of not trying. Of letting you walk away again without fighting for what we had, what we could have again. He reached for her hand, his touch sending warmth up her arm. I'm in therapy. I'm learning to talk about my feelings instead of bottling them up. I'm trying to be the man you always deserved. But I know words aren't enough. I need to show you day by day that I've changed. Before she could respond, Grayson called from the dining room. Is the ice cream coming, or are you two making out in there? The moment broken, they laughed, the tension easing. We're coming, Evan called back, squeezing Celeste's hand once before letting go. Later that night, as Evan drove her home, Celeste found herself wishing the drive was longer. When they reached her building, neither made a move to end the evening. Thank you for dinner, she said, and for putting up with Grayson's comments. Thank you for helping with everything. Gray, my mother, all of it. I don't know how I would have managed without you. That's what you need to remember, she said gently. You don't have to do everything alone, Evan. Letting people help isn't weakness. I know that now, he said. I just wish I'd learned it sooner. Everything happens when it's meant to, Celeste said, surprising herself with the sentiment. 2 months ago, she would have scoffed at such a notion. But now, looking at Evan, at the man he was becoming, she wondered if perhaps their separation had been necessary for both of them to grow. Celeste, Evan said, his voice low and serious. I'd like to kiss you good night, but only if you want that too. Her heart hammered in her chest. I think I do, she whispered. He leaned across the console, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. The kiss was gentle, questioning, a moment suspended in time. When they pulled apart, Celeste felt dizzy with emotion. Good night, Evan, she said softly. Good night, Celeste. She got out of the car with shaky legs, feeling his eyes on her as she entered her building. In the elevator, she touched her fingers to her lips, still feeling the pressure of his kiss. What was she doing? After everything they'd been through, was she really considering giving him another chance? Giving them another chance? Amara would say she was being naive. But Amara hadn't seen what she'd seen. The way Evan now talked openly about his feelings. The way he leaned on her and Grayson when things got tough. The vulnerability in his eyes when he admitted his fears. Maybe people could change, if they wanted it badly enough. Maybe she had changed too. Dr. Chen studied Evan across her office. You seem different today, she observed. More at peace. I feel different, Evan admitted. For the first time in years, I feel hopeful. Tell me about that. Celeste and I kissed last night, he said, unable to keep the smile from his face. It wasn't planned, it just happened, and it felt right. That's a significant step, Dr. Chen noted. How do you feel about it? Terrified, Evan said honestly. Excited, grateful. I know we still have a long way to go. I know one kiss doesn't erase 2 years of pain, but it feels like a beginning. What do you think has changed that makes this beginning possible? Evan considered the question carefully. I've changed, he said finally. I'm learning to be vulnerable, to ask for help when I need it, to talk about my feelings instead of shutting down. And how has Celeste responded to these changes? She's cautious, Evan said, which is understandable. I hurt her badly, but she's giving me a chance to show her that things can be different this time. What happens when things get difficult again? Dr. Chen asked. Because they will, that's the nature of life. It was the question Evan had been asking himself. The true test of his growth wouldn't come in these good moments, but in the inevitable hard ones. "I'll talk to her," he said firmly. "I'll tell her when I'm struggling. I'll ask for help. I'll remember that letting her in doesn't make me weak. It makes us stronger together." Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. "That's a healthy perspective. But remember, this journey isn't just about winning Celeste back. It's about becoming a healthier, more integrated person for yourself first." "I know," Evan agreed, "and I'm committed to that, regardless of what happens with Celeste. But I'd be lying if I said she wasn't a big part of my motivation." "That's natural," Dr. Chen assured him. "Love is a powerful motivator for change. Just make sure you're not solely defining your progress by her response." As Evan left the session, he felt lighter than he had in years. He had spent so much of his life trying to be strong for everyone else, never realizing that true strength came from vulnerability, from connection, from the courage to ask for help. He pulled out his phone and texted Celeste. "Just finished therapy. Good session. Made me think about how grateful I am for you. Dinner Friday?" Her reply came quickly. "I'd like that. 7 again?" "Perfect," he texted back, smiling to himself. Later that afternoon, Evan was in his office reviewing blueprints when his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Maddox, the committee for the Richards Foundation is here for your presentation." Evan nodded, gathering his materials. The Richards Foundation grant would fund his community center design, including the specialized facilities for Alzheimer's patients. It was the most personal project he'd ever undertaken, inspired by his mother's journey. In the conference room, a group of well-dressed board members waited. Evan recognized James Richards, the elderly founder, sitting at the head of the table. "Mr. Maddox," Richards greeted him, "we're looking forward to seeing your design concept." Evan set up his presentation, feeling a strange calm. This project mattered to him in a way no other had before. It wasn't just about winning a prestigious commission. It was about creating something meaningful, something that could help families like his own. "Before I begin," Evan said, "I'd like to share why this project is so personal to me. My mother was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's 4 years ago. Watching her navigate environments that weren't designed for her needs has been eye-opening. Simple things, confusing layouts, poor lighting, lack of visual cues, make her anxious and disoriented." He pulled up a photograph of Eleanor. "This is my mother, Eleanor Maddox. She was once a brilliant literature professor. Now she struggles to remember what day it is. But in the right environment, with the right support, she still has moments of clarity, of joy, of connection." The board members watched intently as Evan continued, his voice growing more passionate. "Architecture can't cure Alzheimer's, but it can create spaces that honor the dignity and humanity of those living with it. That's what this community center aims to do." As he walked them through his design, the intuitive wayfinding elements, the memory gardens, the spaces for family interaction, Evan felt more connected to his work than ever before. "Any questions?" he asked when he'd finished. James Richards leaned forward. "Just one, Mr. Maddox. When can you start?" Celeste was finishing up her last class of the day when her phone buzzed with a text from Evan. "Got the Richards Foundation grant. Can we celebrate tonight instead of waiting for Friday?" She smiled, typing back, "Congratulations. That's wonderful news. Yes to tonight. Where and when?" "I'll pick you up at 7. Dress nice. I have something special planned." Intrigued, Celeste rushed home to get ready. She chose a midnight blue dress that Evan had always loved, feeling only slightly guilty about wanting to impress him. Whatever was happening between them, tonight was about celebrating his achievement, an achievement she knew meant the world to him. At precisely 7, Evan arrived, looking handsome in a charcoal suit. His eyes widened appreciatively when he saw her. "You look stunning," he said, his voice warm with admiration. "You clean up pretty well yourself," she replied, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. "So where are we going?" "It's a surprise," he said mysteriously, offering her his arm. The surprise turned out to be a small, exclusive restaurant overlooking the Chicago River. As they were shown to a table with a spectacular view of the illuminated skyline, Celeste couldn't help but be impressed. "This must have been impossible to get last minute," she remarked. "The owner's daughter takes Pilates at your studio," Evan explained with a grin. "I may have name-dropped." "Sneaky," she laughed. They ordered champagne to celebrate, and as they clinked glasses, Evan's expression turned serious. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said. "Your support, your insight about my mother's needs, it all shaped the design." "I doubt that's true," she demurred. "You've always been talented." "Talented, maybe, but closed off. I never would have shared the personal story behind the design before. I would have kept it professional, impersonal. Today, I told the board about my mother, about why this matters to me. That's a big step, Celeste acknowledged, touched by his growth. It felt right, he said simply, being honest about what drives me, being vulnerable about what matters. As dinner progressed, they talked about his plans for the community center, about Eleanor's improving condition, about Grayson's recovery. It felt easy, natural, like coming home after a long journey. Over dessert, Evan reached for her hand across the table. "There's something else I wanted to talk to you about," he said. "Something important." Celeste felt her pulse quicken. "What is it?" "The Chicago Architectural Society is holding their annual gala next weekend. I'm receiving an award for innovative design. I'd like you to come with me as my date." The word date hung between them, significant and weighted. "A real date this time?" she asked softly. "Not just friends." "A real date," he confirmed, "if you're ready for that." She studied his face, the hopeful look in his eyes, the vulnerable set of his mouth. This was the moment of truth. Was she ready to take this step, to risk her heart again? "I think I am," she said finally. "But Evan, we need to take things slow. Really slow." Relief and joy spread across his features. "Slow is good. Slow is perfect. I just want a chance to show you who I am now, who we can be together." She squeezed his hand, a tentative smile forming on her lips. "Then yes, I'll be your date for the gala." The night of the gala arrived, bringing with it a flutter of nerves. Celeste had bought a new dress for the occasion, a floor-length emerald gown that complemented her skin tone and made her feel beautiful. As she put the finishing touches on her makeup, she heard a knock at her apartment door. It was Amara, looking concerned. "I had to see you before your big date," she said, letting herself in. "Is everything okay?" Celeste asked. "That's what I came to ask you," Amara replied, studying her sister. "You look gorgeous, by the way." "Thank you," Celeste said, turning back to the mirror to put on her earrings. "And yes, everything is fine, better than fine, actually." "You're really going through with this," Amara observed. "Getting back together with Evan." "We're taking it slow," Celeste clarified. "One day at a time." "But you're falling for him again. I can see it in your face." Celeste sighed, turning to face her sister. "Maybe I am. Is that so terrible?" "It is, if he breaks your heart again," Amara said bluntly. "Celeste, I was there the first time. I watched you shatter. I don't want to see that happen again." "He's different now," Celeste insisted. "He's in therapy. He's opening up. He's letting me in. For how long? Until the next crisis? Until things get hard again?" "That's not fair," Celeste protested. "People can change, Amara. I've changed. The woman I was 2 years ago would never have opened her own studio, would never have stood on her own 2 feet the way I have." "That's exactly my point," Amara said passionately. "You're strong now, independent, happy. Why risk that?" Celeste took her sister's hands. "Because life isn't about playing it safe. It's about taking chances on the things that matter. And despite everything, Evan matters to me. He always has." Amara's expression softened. "I just don't want to see you hurt again." "I know," Celeste said, "and I love you for that. But I need to follow my heart on this one." After a moment, Amara nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but if he hurts you again, I get to say, 'I told you so' before I kill him." Celeste laughed. "Deal." When Evan arrived to pick her up, he brought a small box instead of the traditional flowers. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny silver rose. "White roses," he said as he fastened it around her wrist. "Still your favorite, right?" "You remembered," she said, touched by the thoughtfulness. "I remember everything about you, Celeste," he said softly, "even the things I was too stubborn to acknowledge before." The gala was held in the grand ballroom of one of Chicago's oldest hotels. The room glittered with lights and the jewelry of the city's architectural elite. As they entered, several people greeted Evan warmly, their curious gazes moving to Celeste. "Evan, good to see you," an older man said, shaking his hand. "And who is this lovely lady?" "James, this is Celeste Harmon," Evan said proudly. "Celeste, this is James Richards of the Richards Foundation. The inspiration behind Evan's community center design," James said, taking her hand. "He spoke very highly of your insights." "Did he?" Celeste asked, surprised. "Indeed, his presentation was quite moving. The personal connection to the project clearly informs his innovative approach. We're very excited to see it become reality." As they moved through the crowd, more introductions followed. Evan kept his hand at the small of her back, a warm, reassuring presence. He seemed different in this professional setting than she remembered, more confident but less guarded, more willing to share credit and acknowledge influences. When it came time for the awards, they found their seats near the stage. The president of the Architectural Society took the podium to introduce the recipients. Our next award, for innovation in community-focused design, goes to Evan Maddox of Maddox Architectural Group. Applause filled the room as Evan squeezed Celeste's hand and made his way to the stage. He accepted the Crystal Award with a gracious nod, then stepped to the microphone. "Thank you," he began. "This award means a great deal to me, particularly because it recognizes design that puts people first. That's something I lost sight of for a while, the human element in architecture. The way spaces shape our experiences, our connections, our lives." He paused, his eyes finding Celeste in the audience. "I'd like to dedicate this award to two extraordinary women. My mother, Eleanor Maddox, whose journey with Alzheimer's has taught me more about courage and grace than I could learn in a lifetime, and Celeste Harmon, who taught me that real strength isn't found in standing alone, but in having the courage to let others in." Celeste felt tears spring to her eyes as Evan continued. "2 years ago I made the biggest mistake of my life. I pushed away the woman I loved because I was afraid of being vulnerable, of needing her. I thought I was protecting her, but really, I was protecting myself. It took losing her to realize what truly matters." Murmurs rippled through the crowd at this unexpectedly personal turn. Architecture is about creating spaces that shelter us, that bring us together, that help us connect. But those connections mean nothing if we wall ourselves off emotionally. If we design beautiful homes, but can't open our hearts to the people who make those houses homes. His gaze remained fixed on Celeste, as if they were the only two people in the room. "I'm still learning, still growing, still trying to tear down the walls I built around my heart. But I'm grateful every day for second chances, for the opportunity to build something new, something better, something that lasts." He raised the award slightly. "Thank you for this honor. And thank you to everyone who has supported me on this journey, especially those who had every reason to walk away, but chose to stay." The applause as he left the stage was thunderous. When he returned to their table, Celeste could barely speak past the lump in her throat. "That was quite a speech," she managed finally. "Too much?" he asked, suddenly uncertain. "No," she said, reaching for his hand. "It was perfect." For the rest of the evening, they mingled, danced, and celebrated. Evan introduced her to colleagues and clients, always with a warmth and pride that made her feel valued. It was different from their marriage, when he had kept his professional and personal lives carefully separated. As the night wound down, they stood on the hotel's terrace, looking out at the city lights. Evan wrapped his jacket around her shoulders to ward off the chill. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said, "for being by my side." "Thank you for the most beautiful speech I've ever heard," she replied. "Did you mean it? All of it?" "Every word," he assured her, "especially the part about second chances." She turned to face him, searching his eyes for any hint of doubt, any shadow of the emotional distance that had once driven them apart. All she found was love, clear and steady. "I'm still scared," she admitted, "of getting hurt again, of losing myself in us." "I know," he said. "I'm scared too. But I think maybe that's okay. Maybe being scared and doing it anyway is what courage is all about." "When did you get so wise?" she teased gently. "Therapy," he said with a grin. "Turns out, paying strangers to listen to your problems has its benefits." She laughed, the sound carrying on the night air. Then, more seriously, "We'll need to set boundaries. Make sure we're both growing together, not losing ourselves." "Absolutely," he agreed. "I want to do this right, Celeste, whatever it takes." "And you'll keep going to therapy?" "As long as I need to," he promised, which, according to Dr. Chen, might be a while. She smiled, her heart full. "Then I think we have a chance. A real one this time." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch reverent. "I love you, Celeste Harmon. I never stopped loving you, I just forgot how to show it." "I love you too," she whispered. "I tried not to, but some loves don't die. They just get lost for a while." When he kissed her, it felt like coming home and setting out on a new adventure all at once. This wasn't the end of their story. In many ways it was just the beginning, a second chance, hard-won and precious. 3 months later, Celeste stood in Eleanor's room at Sunset Pines, helping the older woman get ready for a special outing. The community center that Evan had designed was having its groundbreaking ceremony, and Eleanor was the guest of honor. "Is this necklace too much?" Eleanor asked, touching the pearl strand at her throat. "It's perfect," Celeste assured her. "You look beautiful, Eleanor." "So do you, dear," Eleanor replied, her eyes clear and present. She was having a good day, one of many recently, as her new medication seemed to be helping stabilize her symptoms. That ring looks lovely on your hand. Celeste glanced down at the simple silver band on her right hand, a promise ring that Evan had given her last week. Not an engagement ring, not yet. They were taking things slowly, rebuilding trust step by step. "Thank you," she said softly. "He's doing better, isn't he?" Eleanor asked. "My son, he seems lighter, more himself." "He is," Celeste agreed. "We both are." Eleanor took her hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "I always knew you two would find your way back to each other. Love like yours doesn't come along every day." A knock at the door announced Evan's arrival. He entered with Grayson, who had recovered fully from his accident and was back to his cheerful, teasing self. "Ladies, your chariot awaits," Grayson announced with a theatrical bow. "And by chariot, I mean Evan's boring sedan." "Hey, that boring sedan has heated seats," Evan protested good-naturedly. He crossed to his mother, kissing her cheek. "You look wonderful, Mom." "Of course I do," Eleanor said with a hint of her old spirit. "Celeste helped me." Evan's eyes met Celeste's over his mother's head, filled with gratitude and love. "She has a knack for that," he said softly, "helping people be their best selves." The groundbreaking ceremony was small, but meaningful. Eleanor, with Evan's help, turned the first shovelful of dirt where the memory garden would be planted. Reporters took photos, city officials made speeches, and Evan outlined his vision for a space that would serve the community while providing specialized support for those with memory challenges. Afterward, as they celebrated with cake and champagne, Celeste found herself standing slightly apart, watching Evan interact with the guests. He moved easily between conversations, his natural charm enhanced by a new openness, a willingness to connect that had been missing before. Grayson appeared at her side, offering her a glass of champagne. "Penny, for your thoughts? Just thinking about how far we've all come," she said, accepting the glass. "You, me, Evan, Eleanor, we're quite the group, aren't we?" Grayson grinned. "The broken family that found its way back together." "Not broken," Celeste corrected gently. "Just a little lost for a while. Well, whatever we were, I'm glad we're here now." He clinked his glass against hers. "To second chances." "To second chances," she echoed. Across the room, Evan caught her eye and smiled, a smile full of promise, of future, of love that had weathered a storm and emerged stronger. He excused himself from his conversation and made his way to her side, sliding an arm around her waist. "Happy?" he asked softly. Celeste leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her shoulder. "Yes," she said simply. "I am." And she was. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. There would still be hard days ahead. Eleanor's condition would continue to progress. Work would sometimes be stressful. Life would throw challenges their way, as it always did. But this time, they would face those challenges together. This time, Evan wouldn't shut down when things got hard. This time, Celeste wouldn't have to beg him to fight for them, because this time, they both knew what they had almost lost, and neither was willing to let it slip away again. The date that shouldn't have happened had led them here, to a second chance they never expected, to a love deeper and truer than before, to a future they would build together, one day at a time. As Evan kissed her temple, his lips lingering in a silent promise, Celeste knew with absolute certainty, sometimes the wrong turn leads you exactly where you're meant to be, the end.